Heels win it 67-64. Adam, two things about this game felt like they won it for the Tar Heels. Number one was the rebounding effort. It was by far the number one point of emphasis for Hubert Davis after the Michigan State game, where Carolina was out-rebounded. Michigan State was effective, particularly on the offensive glass, and Hubert Davis let it be known to his team that he did not feel as though that was a winning formula, particularly against good teams. So you see Carolina go in against Kentucky, who at the time, I believe, was fifth in the nation in rebounding margin. They were out-rebounding their opponents by more than 14 per game. And Carolina out-rebounds the Cats 41-30. That included 20 offensive rebounds and 22 second-chance points for Carolina. That was the dominant factor for the Tar Heels. And the other factor was the defense in the second half, where Kentucky at one point went more than 10 minutes without a field goal. Now, they were still getting to the free throw line a lot, and because of those free throws plus Carolina's inability to get a lot of offensive momentum either, even though they went 10 minutes without a field goal, Carolina really didn't. The score just kind of stayed the same. It sat there between Kentucky leading by 2 and Kentucky leading by 6. And just kind of was in that range for a really long time before eventually Carolina tied it up with about 4 minutes to go and then eventually wins it. And, of course, the third part of this was Derek Dixon with some huge plays down the stretch. Hit a big three-pointer to give Carolina the lead, then had a driving layup to give Carolina the lead again after Kentucky had tied it, and then the Heels get the final stop. So, Adam, it wasn't real pretty. Neither one of these teams are at 100%. But what it was a road win that is going to live well all season long for Carolina. I think Kentucky's going to get better as this year goes on. They're missing some pieces that they'll get back. And it was also just nice to see Carolina win one of these games. We said it after the Kansas game. It just feels like Carolina, of course, has been involved in a lot of these games. They always are. But to see them win was pleasant.
Yeah, you can't say at the beginning of the year, okay, here's the games that it's very important for Carolina to win and single out, 7 or 8 games. And then when they win one of those games, say, well, it wasn't a great win. Well, no, these are the ones you said were important to win, and the Tar Heels did. It is probably not going to go on ESPN Classic as an instant classic, if that even still exists. But it was a win. It felt at halftime like what Kentucky was doing was probably more sustainable than what Carolina was doing, but the Tar Heels just kept rebounding. They didn't look great in the half court, but a lot of times it didn't matter because they would get the rebound, and Derek Dixon's 3 off an offensive rebound. So they did what they were able to do. Great efforts by Caleb Wilson and Henry Vasar on the offensive glass. Derek Dixon comes in, and I thought it was impressive that he hadn't been great up until the last couple minutes. I think he was 1 for 6, but he hit his last 2 when it mattered, and that's a positive sign going forward.
What do you think? Why do you think Carolina's half-court offense hasn't looked very good these last 2 games? Because it hasn't.
It hasn't. And just kind of a sneak peek ahead, Georgetown's going to make you play in the half court, so that'll be a point of emphasis between now and then. I don't know. There's a lot of standing and looking, and it seems like it turns into a high ball screen with 10 seconds on the shot clock almost every time. Some of that obviously is dependent on the point guard. I don't think you can say that it's not. Some of it is dependent on setting better screens and moving more crisply. Sometimes I do think the Tar Heels are just standing around a little bit. But at the same time, and you made this point on Tuesday, at the same time that the half court wasn't very good, Carolina was pretty good coming out of timeouts.
Mm-hmm.
So they are able to run sets and get good shots, just not consistently in the half court as of yet. You got a lot of guys who aren't necessarily extremely familiar with each other. So maybe that's part of it, but it is an area of improvement for sure.
Well, and I mean, as Roy Williams said, the other team is trying to win the game too and has scholarship players too. And Kentucky and Michigan State are good defensive teams. I mean, that is part of it as well. Both these teams have good size, good athleticism, and so it's different than when you're running your set against Radford. So I do think some of that is an adjustment period for Carolina. It does feel like they get into some stretches where if it doesn't happen immediately, then they all stand and look to the bench and they get a play call. And then by the time everybody's in the right place for the play call, there's like 8 seconds left on the clock. And so I just think some of that's operation time and just everything getting cleaned up a little bit for the Tar Heels to be more successful in that area. But this was a tough win. I mean, you were there, Adam, just like I was, although you weren't allowed to sit with us, obviously. This is a game that, I mean, I both thought, man, this game is right there for the taking, and also thought, man, it just doesn't feel like Carolina is going to do this because there was just never much rhythm or flow, or you never felt like one team really had a long stretch of quality play. It was just kind of a clunky battle for a long time. So sometimes you got to win games like, and again, the most important thing is Carolina won the game and did some nice things to win the game. And Adam, you mentioned Vasar. There's a lot of talk about Caleb Wilson, and deservedly so, and we've talked a lot about Caleb Wilson. I mean, Henry Vasar has been the most consistent Tar Heel, I think, so far this season. And you're looking at a guy he was a good player at Arizona, but was a reserve. He started a handful of games last year. Now he's playing 30 to 35 minutes every game. He played 36 minutes in this game. And when he's not on the court, although I thought Zayden Hyde gave Carolina some better minutes in this particular game than what the Heels had been getting in the reserve post players. But Vasar's just been really consistent, really steady. I think it was his fourth double-double in the first 8 games for Carolina. He's been in double figures every game. And Adam, I think there was this thought, at least, he's a guy who's going to step out and shoot some threes, which he's done. But, man, he's had some nice moves in the post. Like, I mean, he's a legitimate post player as well. And so he's been very good so far for Carolina. I thought he was one of the, as far as individuals are concerned, one of the main reasons Carolina won this game.
Caleb Wilson's probably gotten his double-doubles in more spectacular fashion. But I think you're right that Henry Vasar has gotten his in a more steady fashion. And in a way that you feel like that can probably happen pretty consistently. And he did not have the reputation as a great rebounder when he got here.
He had never had double-figure rebounds in a game in his career before this season.
And he's talked about how hard he's worked on it, especially on the defensive rebounding side with Sean May. And the progress is evident. Like you can see it from the first day he got here to today. Just the work he's put in and the results that it's created. And that is an area that Carolina needs. That Hubert Davis told me that rebounding is the area that determines the outcome of the game most often, James.
That's what I've heard.
Not sure if you've ever heard that before. That was an area that essentially did win Carolina the game on Tuesday. Just being able to battle an athletic Kentucky team at home and have the edge in that area was determinative. So he's been so important. And when he goes off the court, it feels like things sag a little. And I think he's gotten in better shape too. I mean, remember watching him this summer some in pickup, and he looked tired after a couple of times down the court. You don't see that as much anymore. So he's been working hard on that too.
We had 4 offensive rebounds in this game. Wilson had 6 offensive rebounds. Stevenson, Bogovats, Powell all had 2 offensive rebounds as well for Carolina. Jonathan Powell has now had 9 rebounds in the last 2 games, and 5 of them have been offensive rebounds. So he's been very active off the bench as well for Carolina. Adam, just one more thing. I mean, Derek Dixon, Kyle Evans was in some foul trouble in this game. Evans ended up playing 16 minutes. Dixon ended up playing 24 minutes. And quite honestly, that felt right. I mean, it felt like Dixon in this particular game that the Tar Heels played better with him out there. And for him to be a freshman in a difficult environment, in kind of a clunky game, and to be able to at least be steady and then be terrific at the end was a positive sign. And so how that position continues to play out will be worth keeping an eye on.
And he didn't seem overwhelmed. Like, even after the game, after you've just had a huge game on national TV and you did a national TV interview after the game, you hit the game-winning shot, he just kind of seemed like this is what I expected to do, and things pretty much went like I thought they would. And I think that bodes well for the future. He's also, I don't feel like he's getting enough credit for his shooting. He's really shooting the ball well.
He's almost 50% from three. I think he's 9 of 20 now on the season.
On a team that needs someone to do that. He is doing that. So in addition to the point guard stuff, you also want him shooting the ball. So it feels a little unusual that we're here in the first week of December, and I think the Tar Heels still have a lot of options as to how they want to run the team. Like, you've got Seth Trimble coming back at some unknown time. I still think Luka is an occasional point guard option. Not all the time, but maybe some of the time. But some of the time he does crazy things.
Yeah.
But some of the time he throws some of the best passes we've seen this year. So I don't think you want to rely on that all the time, but it's a choice. And then you've got Kyan Evans and Derek Dixon. So you've got a lot of options of how you want to run the team. And I think whichever one of those, and really the three are Trimble, Dixon, and Evans, whichever one of those three do it in the way that Hubert Davis most sees as his vision for the team, that's the guy you're going to see with the ball in his hands a whole lot as we go into conference play.
67-64. Adam, anything else from Rupp?
I think Rupp is a fine environment. They've taken some seats out, so it's actually smaller than the Smith Center now. But it's not like we went to Kansas last year. I thought Kansas was a little more intimidating. Rupp is a big arena with a lot of fans who really love Kentucky. But you don't walk out of there going, well, I don't see how anyone ever wins here.
They don't lose there very often. I don't disagree with you. It was a weird, I don't know. I thought it was like a weird vibe on Tuesday.
They do now, the game started at 9:40.
Yeah, that's part of it. It was so late.
But they do a great job of getting people in the building before tip. Like, it was packed when they threw the ball up. But again, it started at 9:40. You're either going to be in bed or at the game.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, Kentucky was missing some guys. Carolina was missing Seth Trimble. So we'll see how these two teams continue on. Kentucky plays Gonzaga tonight, and they have games upcoming against, in the very near future, St. John's and somebody else who's good that I can't remember. So they've got their difficult stretch continues. Of course, the Tar Heels have Georgetown on Sunday. Then the Heels have a couple games they're going to be heavily favored in, and then they go to Atlanta to play Ohio State. So, in fact, Kentucky's playing St. John's in that CBS Sports Classic because St. John's is filling in for UCLA this year, and then UConn's taking UCLA's spot. Is that what we decided, Adam?
There's definitely going to be some movement in that event.
Some movement. We don't know for sure.
The Kentucky is in a little bit of danger of being the Tar Heels from last year, where they're playing all these tough games and they have some guys out. And if they lose all these games, but then they'll play SEC games.
Yeah.
And if you beat anyone in the SEC, that is a very impressive win, as we all know, unless you're the ACC and you do it. And then that's not really as big a deal.
Well, and they're not as, the league's not as good. Their league is not as good this year as it was last year when it was like a once-in-a-generation league for them. And some of these teams are still very good teams, but like even teams like an Ole Miss is not nearly as good as it was last year. Mississippi State, Missouri, some of those level teams, I still think Alabama's very good. Auburn seems to be good, not as good as it was last year. Tennessee's good. Kentucky, I do think, is good. Florida, good. I don't know if these teams are as good as they were a year ago, though.
ACC SEC Challenge 9-7.
I do wish, Adam, what a statement I'm about to make. It would have helped the league if Stanford and Cal could have played. They're both having really strong starts to the year, but because the ACC can't send everybody because the league is so big, because of where those teams finished a year ago, they didn't play, but they're better than Georgia Tech and Boston College this year.
Boston College took undefeated LSU to overtime.
Yep. And Georgia Tech did not look good. They lost at home to Mississippi State by 12, I think. It would have helped the league if Stanford and Cal could have played. I think between those two teams, they're like 15-2 or something like that to start the year. Cal has some nice wins. They've beaten UCLA, beat Utah, I think, the other night. Stanford has a really good freshman on their team who's leading. Then I think their coach is good. The West Coast ACC is better this year than it was a year ago, kind of quietly, because you have to stay up till like when the Tar Heels normally tip, 10 o'clock to watch them play. But they're both good.
We'll find out when we spend a week out there. It does seem like at least at worst case scenario, the middle of the league has come up.
Absolutely.
Like Clemson, once they woke up, looked pretty good. Louisville, once they woke up, looked pretty good. Virginia looked really good.
Yeah.
So we think Carolina and Duke are good. And did State play? I don't even know if they played. Oh, did they lose? But the middle of the league that was soft last year, Syracuse, I don't know any of their players, but they looked like they had a capable basketball team.
Yes.
So there's going to be some tougher games in the middle this year, whereas last year I think you just kind of looked at it and said, okay, when do you play Duke? And I guess Louisville, even though they didn't play anybody good. That's how Louisville was Louisville last year.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like that this year. Like you might lose 3 or 4 or 5 games in the league and still have a chance to be at the top part of the league.
No, I mean, I think Miami is better.
Miami.
Clemson is at least in the neighborhood of what it was a year ago. Maybe not quite as good, but not bad. Wake is my Notre Dame this year, where I keep thinking they're going to be good, but they don't actually ever do anything, but they look like they might be good. I think State's ultimately going to be better, although it doesn't have a good record right now. Virginia Tech is better. Virginia is better. Notre Dame is better. Louisville is better. Syracuse is better. Stanford and Cal, West Coast, what up? It's better. SMU's a mirage. Pony Bros don't know. When we get teleported there in January, we'll report back. And Duke's good. I think Carolina's good. So we'll see.
I thought Virginia was the most surprisingly impressive team that I saw, and I tried to watch a little bit of all the games. Texas isn't bad, and they just took Texas apart at Texas.
Yeah.
Right after Texas had beaten State. So Virginia is better than I thought, I think, and Carolina only plays at Charlottesville.
Yeah, I mean, there's some – remember, the only 2 teams Carolina plays twice this year are Syracuse and Duke, both of whom are good. Everybody else you only play once, and that includes Virginia one time on the road.
State one time on the road.
State one time on the road.
Miami one time on the road.
The West Coast teams one time on the road. So it is. It will be a challenge. I mean, there is it. The league is better. Is the whole point of this. I don't know if it's elite. It's not. It's not like 1984 ACC, but it's better.